Hello again. Now, I showed in a previous video the little Arduino based record speed tester that I built, and this is it here. It's got an Arduino there, and that's a Nano. I did use a Pro Micro originally, but these are more expensive, so I've gone for the cheaper Nano, which works just as well. And there's a 7-segment LED display there that's out of an old CD player, and the sensor here, there's an infrared diode and an infrared photodiode there, and a transistor as well, just to boost it. So that all works just fine, but it's a bit inconvenient to use. I don't like having things on breadboard, so I'm going to rebuild it on some strip board. And I've also shown previously the £1 power bank, and these are the bits here and the rest of it here, and the battery just there, which I'm going to use to power it, because this gives me a convenient 5-volt supply. I've also got my crib sheet. This is just some circuit information around the 7-segment display, so that I can make some notes and make sure that I keep the wiring that I've got on this board here when I transfer it over onto the strip board. So I'm not going to show every last detail of putting this together, but my intention is to build a bit and show a bit, and generally make a nice shortish video that shows me putting the whole thing together, and then I should be able to show it on various record players and see what sort of results I actually get. I've stripped all the components off the breadboard, and I've started to mount them just temporarily on the strip board. So you can see here I've got the Arduino and the 7-segment display. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to use this as the handle, so something like that, and then maybe just drill some holes in there and in there and just bolt that on like that. Okay, something like that. And then I need to decide what to do with the sensor. I've already built that up onto a little bit of strip board. It's a different brand, it's a different colour. I don't really want to rebuild it, so maybe I'll just mount that under the end there somehow, like so. And the little light on there I'll take off and put on top somewhere. It's just a little power light, it doesn't really signify anything. And all the other components, which is basically some resistors and the indicator LED, are just over there, just out the way for when I need them. So I'm going to have to score and cut or snap the board, probably take that section off like so, and separate the tracks there, and actually bring out the various connections through the resistors and connect them up to the Nano. And I've made a note on my crib sheet. I know which Nano pin connects to which LED on the 7-segment display, which is really all there is to this circuit. There is one other indicator light that I need to worry about, and there's also just power, and also where the signal comes in. So the signal pin, the blue pin on here, that goes into A0, and I've just made a note of that. I've taken the strip board and cut a segment off it to make a big strip like this, and then just temporarily mounted the Arduino Nano and the 7-segment display and a switch and an LED, and that LED is to display the pulses when I get a flash back from the target on the turntable. On the back you can see that I've cut tracks to separate the switch and the LED and the 7-segment display and the Nano. So those pins there have been separated by some cuts in the tracks, and these pins here on the Nano have been separated as well. And then I've also separated the two from each other so that I can wire across to connect the display pins to the Nano. So next job will be to solder the components on the board. I'm going to start with the resistors. I decided that I could neaten up the layout by reassigning some of the pins. It just means that the resistors look neater on the board. I've updated my crib sheet just to make sure that I remember to reprogram the Arduino. I'm using masking tape to hold down the components while I solder them, and I'm using the cut off legs of the resistors to make links on the board. Okay, well, I've reprogrammed the Arduino now, and I've soldered it in along with all the other components apart from the actual sensor. So I'm just going to try a power up test. I've reassembled my power bank here. I'm just going to use a USB cable to plug it in. Right, okay, so there you should be able to see that the display is coming up 00 and the LED is coming on as well. Now the LED will come on a bit randomly because it's based on the input which isn't connected, but 00 is correct for the display, so I think that's successful so far. I've just wired up the connections to the back of the USB connector on the battery pack. This is to bring out the 5 volts and ground without having to use a USB cable. Just as a quick test, I've got the sensor wired up to the battery pack. Now the sensor normally points at the rotating target, which is just a sequence of mirrors that flashes back the infrared light as the turntable goes round. I'm just going to use a piece of metal as a mirror. I've got the multimeter wired up to it over there, so as I wave the bit of metal in front of the sensor, you can see the voltage drops. So I know that's working now. Okay, well, I've finished it now. It's pretty much as I designed. I had a little trouble when testing it with the sensitivity of the sensor, so I've got a little potentiometer there that I can adjust that with. Got a little on off button here, comes on, shows the display, and you can see that it does register pulses. So now it's time to try it with a proper record deck. I'm going to use this rather beat up iron contour LP deck for this test. That's the target. It's just a little 3D printed plastic part with some tinfoil mirrors. It's a bit overcomplicated and doesn't fit this deck very well, but it'll do for now. So start it on 78. Trick to this is to get the LED to flash constantly. So that's showing 78. So that's not too bad. Let's try it on 45. 45.5, 46. So that's okay. Let's try it on 33. $34. So that's not too bad either. So there we go, seems to work, and in fact the record deck seems to have fairly decent speeds as well. I will do some tests on some other record decks that I've got, and I'll put up another video about those. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Mr. RG Stuff.